Hey kiddos, this is going to be our last, I promise, video and lesson on quadratic equations. We only have one more unit to do, and that's going to be exponential functions, which I'm going to start tomorrow. But just really wanting to make sure that I hammer home the quadratic formula. So I'm going to post this video, obviously on YouTube, but I'm also going to post this on Google Classroom, and there's going to be the IXL link to complete these questions. And I know how much y'all love getting a SMART score of 100, so that's my challenge to all of you, but I'll be posting a new lesson tomorrow. So we're just going to dive right in. So you'll probably have a different type of problem than I have in front of me right here. But this is my first one when I logged into IXL on this lesson. I got 9q squared plus q minus 1 equals 0. I really want you guys to just solve these with the quadratic formula, since that's going to be something that you have to be very familiar with for Algebra 2 in 2 years. And if you don't have access to your reference materials in your journal, you guys all have access to the internet though, so I don't know why you guys wouldn't look this up, but it would be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's what we're going to be operating in for these next couple of problems. So very first thing, and this is what we learned before we left for spring break, is a equals 9. We have to set all of our variables. B is, again, if you just have a singular variable, the coefficient in front is 1. And C is negative 1. And now I know we don't have our quadratic equation maths like we did before spring break, but now all we're doing is we're going through each of these variables and substituting, instead of the variable, substituting in a number. F of x we all know just means y. So we have f of x equals, make sure you keep the negative. The negative comes with the equation. We'll explain this a little bit deeper when one of our problems has a b that's a negative value, but my b for this example is 1. So the negative in front with the equation now makes this value a negative 1. Plus or minus the square root of, we want to keep everything in parentheses, and if I have variables and numbers next to one another, the math operation that I'm performing is multiplication. So 1 in parentheses minus 4, that 1 came from b. Now I'm going to find my a value, which is 9. My c value is negative 1. Again, everything in parentheses because that means that I'm going to be using the math operation of multiplication. All over 2 times, what's my a value? 9. And I told you guys that all I want you to do first is to find the value that's going to be underneath the square root sign. Now, I know some of you weren't able to check out calculators, and I know that some of you are having a hard time using the calculators on the internet, but biggest thing is you guys know how to do this with mental math, and you guys know how to do this with scratch paper, but you just need to find what is the value underneath the square root sign. So if you do have a graphing calculator, you're going to put this in exactly as you see it, with the parentheses and all. You're going to have to be using several different parentheses sets. 1 squared minus 4 times 9 times negative 1, just like this. And I push enter. That's 37. So I have f of x equals negative 1. There's no keep, change rule there. Plus or minus the square root of 37 over, what's 2 times 9? 18. Please don't say 11. And now if I wanted to simplify the square root sign next, I'm going to do the square root. And how do I find the square root sign? It's the x squared button, but if you see that the square root sign is in yellow, the radicand is in yellow, which means I have to push second first. And let's see if the square root of 37 is a perfect square. And it's not. So it's 6.0827. You'll see in IXL that it wants you to round your numbers to the nearest hundredths place. Now, hundredths place is going to be 2 decimal places beyond the decimal. This first place right here is the tenths place. And then the 8 is your hundredths place. So what we always do is we look beyond the place value where we're trying to round, and it's that number that's going to determine whether or not we round this up or round this down. And our little jingle that we remember is it's 5 or more, you raise the score, 4 or less, you let it rest. So this 2 is going to keep this 8 value at 8. We're not going to round this value up. So we'll keep this at negative 1 plus or minus 6.08 divided by 18. IXL wants you guys to round this. You'll never have to do that for EOC or ever have to do that on any sort of standardized exam. They'll have the square root of 37 there, but just for the sake of IXL, we'll be doing this their way. The way that this is set up is going to then divide this into 2 types of solutions. This will be negative 1 plus 6.08 divided by 18. And the other value is going to be negative 1 minus 6.08 divided by 18. And you'll just do that with the numerator first and then the denominator, or you can do this entire thing as long as you put parentheses around it. But I'm going to break this up into pieces. It's easier. Negative 1 plus 6.08 divided by 18. And again, it wants you to round it to the nearest hundredths place, so you want 2 decimal places. I'm going to look at the 2, the value beyond the 8, which is the hundredths place. 5 or more, you raise the score. 4 or less, you let it rest. This 2 is going to keep this 8 at 8. So my first solution is 0.28. And then I'll do negative 1 minus 6.08 divided by 18. And again, rounding it to the nearest hundredths place. So here's my tenth, my hundredths. The 3 is what I'm going to look to determine whether or not this is going to go up or down. Because it's 4 or less, rather, you let it rest. So it'll be negative 0.39, or just 0.39. Miss Supa's going to check whether or not her answers are right, because I'm always